So now y'all come into my kitchen. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome to Cooking Today. I'm glad you're here. I love it when you join me in the kitchen. Today we are baking. Don't you love it when I have the mixer out? I just get the itch to bake so much, especially when it's cold outside and kids are still at home and we're crossing our fingers for the snow days. I just love to bake, and this is one of our favorites at our house. It is a sour cream banana chocolate chip bread. Doesn't it sound good? And I'll tell you, we used to when the kids were little, it was a real treat for us to drive through like a coffee shop, like a specialty coffee shop. And there was a particular coffee shop that had a sour cream chocolate chip banana like bundt piece or bundt cake, and you would just get like a slice, And it was my kids' very favorite thing for me to, I'd get them like a hot chocolate or a chocolate milk or something, and then we would share a piece of that. They loved it. Well, as they got a little bit older, they started saying, can you just make that at home? Because it sure is good. So I kind of set out to find a recipe that I could make at home that would make my kids tickled and that we could have, anytime we wanted it. And so this is the closest thing I've got. It's really, really, really good. I think you're gonna love it. And it's from scratch, but I think that you can really, it's most of the things that you're gonna have in your house, you're gonna be really surprised. So let's start with this. We have our oven preheated to 375, and I have a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter at room temperature, very much at room temperature, because you really wanna let it get nice and smooth in the the mixer. And then I put in some sugar, like 1 1/3 cup. You can get the full recipe on our Facebook page. And then I am just giving that a little whir around until it really breaks up the butter and the sugar. And then we have a cup of sour cream, and that is delicious. It's part of what gives it this good texture. It makes it very, very moist. And there's just that little bit of something in sour cream, that little bit of tang that is just so good. And with all of this sweet that's going in this bread, that little bit of sour cream just adds a little something you're just gonna really appreciate. Okay, so I've really just kind of broken that down. It's not gonna whip. You know how when we cream our sugar and our butter for like cakes and other things? We're not gonna quite get there because we don't have kind of that same ratio. We aren't having a lot of butter. We aren't using a lot of butter. So it's not gonna whip smooth like that, like some of our other things we've made from scratch. But we have broken it down really well. Okay, so let me grab my little dude here. And then what we wanna do is, look, you can kind of see, it almost looks like shaved ice. You know what that looks like? I sure love shaved ice. Isn't that fun in the summer? Kind of like shaved ice. We've kind of just broken it down. Now we're gonna stir in on low our sour cream. And this is just a cup of whole sour cream. I believe in the whole, not the light or anything like that. And I have not made this with Greek yogurt, but you might try it and see if you like it that way. Okay, so now we're getting a really good smooth texture when we add our sour cream to that. That smells fantastic, y'all. Then we have 4 eggs, large eggs, room temperature. And the reason we do room temperature is because they incorporate better into your mix. And it just helps the texture of your cakes and your breads when everything kind of starts room temperature at the same temperature, rather than part of this being cold, part of this being warm, part of this being room temperature. If it's all the same, you're kind of starting at level playing ground. Does that make sense? And so your texture is good. It bakes more evenly. Oh boy, that smells good. Okay, 4 large eggs. I'm gonna turn this down. We're gonna plop, plop, plop those in. And we wanna just stir that until it comes together. And we've kind of taken care of our wet ingredients. Oh my goodness, that's the good stuff right there. Okay, and I'm gonna turn that off. Isn't that easy? You have almost all of that, don't you, in your pantry and fridge? Now, we have 2 cups of flour. This is just regular all-purpose flour. And then we're gonna do a teaspoon of baking soda. And soda, this is just kind of a little nugget of info for you. Soda generally needs something citric, like citric, when you are baking to help it rise. So I always help remember this. So soda, citrus. So we've got a little of that tart, that tang in that sour cream, and that's why we're using the soda in this, because it's almost like they have to kind of yin yang, they work off of one another for it to rise. Isn't that interesting? And then we're gonna do a little bit of salt, and so I'm gonna mix together my dry ingredients. When we come back, we're gonna put them in our mixer and keep going and start adding in all of our good add-ins that make this so good. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. We are making sour cream banana chocolate chip bread. Doesn't that sound so good? We have already mixed in our butter, sugar, some sour cream, which has got our little acid. It's our little acidic in there. Little tang that's so good. And then we have added our eggs. And it's nice and combined. And then what we have here is our flour, our baking soda, and a little bit of salt. And we're using our baking soda because we've got that little bit of acid in our sour cream. So that's our leavener of choice. And then I'm going to turn it on low so we don't get the poof. And then we're going to slowly bring it up. Now, you do not, on like a quick bread or something, you don't want to overbeat it. You want to stir it just until it's combined, and then a few seconds after that. So we've completely come together, and then we're just going to turn it off. There are mixes and recipes and things like that that will say, now turn your mixer up and beat it for like 2 minutes because you're trying to get air and you want it to be a smoother consistency. But on a bread like this, we actually wanted to just do it till it's just combined. So don't walk away from your mixer like we do in some recipes and let that keep going. It is just fine where it is, okay? Now, the good stuff. This is why I think that this recipe is so healthy. But good for you, good for your kids, because it's got bananas in it, right? I sure love bananas. Oh my goodness, one of my shop girl friends at my store told me this week she didn't like bananas, and I about had a fit. I know that there's a texture thing for some of you. So you couldn't just bite down on one of these and eat it, but y'all, the flavor and the sweetness and the tenderness that it gives to this bread is amazing, and they're really good for you. They're loaded with potassium and vitamins. So, and in here they're gonna be surrounded by chocolate chips. So if you're gonna eat a banana, this is the way to do it, right? Okay, 4 bananas. They need to be pretty ripe. These probably could have been a little bit riper. And then all I'm doing is giving them a little mash with my fork until they're nice and tender. And when you buy your bananas, you need to store them at room temperature and they'll continue to ripen. You know that, right? And once they get to the point where they're either ripe where you want them, you can, put them in your refrigerator and it will slow down the ripening process. You can also, if you've gone too far on your bananas, and that happens a lot, you can stick them in the freezer and you can actually freeze your bananas, real brown bananas you can, and then pull them out and use them later. And I'll be honest, those really brown ones are so sweet and good for breads. So like I said, these probably could have gone a little bit longer, but they're gonna be just fine. Okay, so I'm mashing. Then what we're gonna do with these is bake them in 2 of our little bread loaf pans that I have at Unimaze. They are darling, I love them. And we have our oven set to 375, and they don't take very long. I have made these in a bundt pan before, this bread recipe, and it's beautiful, y'all. It's beautiful. I also have made these as little muffins. Now, you're just gonna have to watch your time and adjust as you're making it and baking. If you change your vessel, your baking vessel, because you know the time is not going to be the same for all of them. So if you alternate from what I'm doing here, then you need to be sure to watch your time. Okay, now 4 bananas mashed. We're going to smush those in there. Okay. And then we're going to stir that in low. We're not turning our speed up real high. Remember, we don't want to do that. We just want to incorporate them. And then we're going to splash 1, splash 2 of good vanilla in there. You know, that's my favorite. It smells so good. And it's just come together. We want it on that nice low spin. And then we're going to take this off. And we want to gently incorporate our chocolate chips. Oh, wish you could smell this. It smells so good. Really, you banana people that don't like bananas, you banana haters, please try this and let me know. I would sure love to know if it changes your mind, because I really think that it might. And you know what else I would love for somebody to try? I haven't done this before, but I've always thought it when I get to this point. I wonder if you couldn't griddle these. Could you put maybe some butter in a pan and then do a little scoop out and have like banana sour cream chocolate chip pancakes? We need to try that, don't we? Or somebody can try that and let me know. Sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, I'm getting my spoon. I am stirring in by hand our chocolate chips. When we come back, we're going to spray our pans and bake them. And then we're going to do a little tester of your baking soda and baking powder for the new year. We got to have good, fresh ingredients so that we are sure to leaven our breads and our muffins and our cakes. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. I'm making one of my family's absolute favorite little breakfast breads, after school snacks, desserts after dinner. I mean, it crosses all kinds of categories of sweet, y'all. It is sour cream banana chocolate chip bread. What's not to love in that title, right? So many good things. So we have mixed our sugar and our butter and our eggs and our vanilla and some mashed bananas with our flour and our salt and our baking soda. Then we've just stirred in by hand about a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. You could use milk chocolate if that's what you've got. You could do a mix, it doesn't really matter. And it is thick and delicious. It smells so good. We have our oven at 375. I know y'all are gonna ask me, so I'll have to remember to put it in the recipe. People always say, what size? I have baked, I said this before we left for the break. I have baked this in a full bundt pan, the whole thing. I have a really sad little something going on here with my baker's joy. I'm gonna have to rub that around. I have done it in a bundt pan. I have done it in muffins. I have done it in larger pans than these little bread pans. Look at that. Yuck. I'm gonna rub that with a paper towel. You're gonna need to adjust your baking time depending on, you know, how big or how small you go. I will say that the overall texture, this is not gonna get all big and tall and cakey like a cake would. So it's not gonna be especially lofty. So if you put it in something that's too large and you're expecting it to fill it all up and get it nice and tall, it's not going to do that. So I would say I prefer more of a small muffin or one of these more petite loaf pans. So these are probably more like 8x4s, more than like a 9x5. I've done it in a larger loaf pan and it really only gets about maybe half its size larger. It does not double. Does that make sense? Because I know y'all are going to go, mine didn't get very tall, or I didn't know what happened, and so that's what I'm telling you. So I am choosing to put them in these more petite, narrower cake pans. And aren't these the cutest cake pans you've ever seen? I just love them. Love these little guys. Unimaze. Of course, I mean, it's all so cute, isn't it? So fun. All right, so scraping, getting those in. And I just give it a little shimmy so that it's equal. And then just for a little crunch and cute on the top, I have some vanilla sugar that you can get anywhere, baking stores or wherever. And I just like the color and the sprinkle on the top. And it's just another little bite of sweetness. You could also do this with like sugar in the raw, you know, something like that. Now, this is important too, and I didn't warn my cameraman, but I'm about to go AWOL and step out. Hang on, y'all bear with me. Okay, you know my trusty pans, I use them all the time. I like to bake my double pans on a sheet pan because it makes it easier to get them in and out. Okay, just like that, putting them in our oven. And I put this size in for about 35 minutes, and I'll start looking at them at 35. They may go to 40. Now this is important in your baking. You know when you bake a bread or a cake or something like that, and you peek, and then you peek again, and then you peek again, and you're opening your door? You're letting out the heat, you're changing the whole chemistry of what's happening inside your oven, and then a lot of times when you close it, you're getting that sink in the top of your bread, your cakes, your muffins, whatever. That's because you're opening the door. You have an oven light for good reason. So look through your door with your oven light on rather than opening and looking and opening and looking, okay? And these really need to be a beautiful kind of a golden brown on the top. And you should have a good little kind of rounded, kind of cracks a little bit on the top. That's what we're going for on these banana loaves, okay? Now, so important. We've talked about this before. Is testing your leaveners, okay? Baking soda, both of these we need to have bubbles, okay? Baking soda needs the acid. Remember how I said that? Something kind of acidy, citrusy to kind of initiate itself. We want it to bubble. So what you do on your baking soda to test your baking soda, you know some of y'all have had your baking soda for like 3 years in there. Do a little bit of baking soda in the bottom of a bowl. Hear that? Well, acid, it needs to fizz like an Alka-Seltzer. You do the exact same test with your baking powder, except you add warm water, and that's it. That's your test. And now you know. You want to have good leaveners for good baking. When we come back, we're going to have banana bread. This is Cooking Today. Welcome back to Cooking Today. We just wrapped up the easiest from scratch sour cream banana chocolate chip bread. Wasn't that so simple? And don't you have most of those things in your pantry? Y'all, these are the beautiful bread loaves that I made in my more petite pans. Remember I told you I've done them in a couple of different ways. These are a little bit smaller, so we got them a little taller. These are the two I actually made as a little test run in a wider, like a 9x5 pan. So it was a little wider, so see how it made it just a little bit, you know, kind of squattier, smaller pieces. But y'all, they're so good. And you can see the chocolate chips, and you can actually see like those yummy, like brown strings of good banana in there. And so moist. Like, I mean, it is just so moist. Look how good that is. Like, it's not crummy or dry. It is tender and delicious, y'all. That's that sour cream, remember? So good. Y'all could make this for breakfast, a little afternoon lunch, a little dessert. Share a loaf, keep a loaf, share a loaf. You know I love to share food. The key to any baked bread or bundt, remember we've talked about that before, is letting it cool for 10 minutes in the pan and then inverting it. Isn't that beautiful? You can see that little tiny bit of like sparkle from that raw like vanilla sugar that we put on there. This is delicious. Really, really good reheated, really, really good cold, really, really good with a little salted butter. Delicious. I hope that you will try this at home. I really think you'll love every bite. This is Cooking Today.